What's up everybody? Today I'm going to be showing you how I tackle a freehand design on a banner. Let's go. Come on, follow me.
This is the banner I've chosen from the Empire State Troops box. If I'm going to do any freehand, I usually look for a banner that has a nice big surface and also, importantly, a smooth-ish surface. Too many folds in the cloth just exponentially raises the difficulty. Step 1, and the most helpful thing, whether you're just trying freehand for the first time or are a seasoned veteran, is using a reference. You can follow it as loosely or as closely as you like, but painting or drawing from a reference image really helps at every step of the way. The reference image I've chosen is a super cool image of Verena, the goddess of learning and justice, and the patron deity of my Empire army. I think this was a limited edition cover art for one of the Warhammer Fantasy role-playing games. I googled as hard as I could, but I could not find out who the original artist is, so if you know, leave it in the comments below and I'll update the video description to include them. This image is also a really good one to use because all the shapes are quite simple, really clearly defined, and it's almost like a stencil. A great rule to work by doing freehand is big to small. I start off by roughly blocking out all the big shapes in a pretty thin layer of paint in case I make any mistakes and need to fix them, or in this case, paint over the whole lot and start again. This is why we use thin paint, people, but also mistakes are fine and it is just paint. You can always paint over it. Once I'm happy with where everything is sitting and the scale, etc., I'll do another pass here, refining each of the shapes. For example, the shape of her forehead, the eye bandage, the lower face, just filling in, touching up, making sure they're exactly how I want them. The next step is to cut in the shapes, if you will. I'm using thinned black paint here and one of my smaller brushes, just outlining everything and filling in the background, working from inside to outside. Take your time and be careful. Unfortunately, unless you're a robot or a surgeon, your hands are gonna wobble a little bit, and there's no shortcuts here. It just takes time. And once you're done with that, that's kind of all the hard stuff done. From here, it's just refining and adding details. The reference I'm using has a really cool 3-color scheme of blue, white, and red, but I'm changing it a little here to suit my army more, opting for grey, white, and yellow, which I think works quite nicely. It's basically coloring in at this point, coloring the focal points of the image like the bandage, the swords, the bird in white, and then hilt, candlestick, scales in yellow.
Now it's time for the other side of the banner, which you could just do identically, but that's so boring. Oh, I hate it. Do something different. So instead of an actual full design, we're just going to put a little roll of cloth and some letters. What do you call it? Like a banner on a banner? Like a scroll? A thing? Yeah. And just keep it in the same sort of style.
For the other side of the banner, we'll approach it a little differently, blocking in our background first and then building on that. Once the background's dry, we still apply the big to small rule, blocking in the bigger shapes first and then zooming in, if you will, on the details. Funnily enough, once the shapes are set, I'm just using a very simple layering technique like I would on any other mini. Base coats, midtones, highlights. I do find though, if you want your banner to be clean and read a little bit better on the tabletop, thin black outlines really help define the shapes. That works particularly well on a black background, but you can also just use your background color, whatever it is. Once all the shapes are looking how I want them, the final touch is to put the text on the scroll. Letters can be so tricky, especially at this scale and on curved surfaces. So if you struggle with them, a good tip is to use a reference font and just treat them like any other image or shape, trying to copy it exactly. I didn't do that here. I just tend to put in serifs and double lines and wiggly shapes, semi-reminiscent of a Gothic style of letter, and I mostly get away with it. My other hot tip for painting text is if it's on some scroll work or such, count how many letters are in the word you're painting, and then start in the middle of your space and work outwards. This way it's much easier to judge how big the letter should be, and you won't end up having to squeeze the last 3 letters into the space of 1. Next up, we'll be doing an oil wash to match it up with my army's style and scheme. You really don't want to use an acrylic wash here. They tend to look awful on smooth surfaces. They go all splotchy and they'll ruin all the hard work you've put in here. Standard oil wash procedure here, except I've used matte varnish and a thicker consistency because I want the oil to leave a definite filter or stain over the whole thing. After wiping it off with a makeup sponge, it's important here to leave the oil to dry properly, which should be in about a day or less depending on how much thinner you used and what the weather's like and that sort of stuff. And once it's dry, another coat of matte varnish just evens out the whole thing.
That's the banner done. Let me know if you've got any questions, if stuff needs explaining, if you want me to talk about other stuff. Anyway, I whacked this banner on my unit of demigryph knights, which you can see in the last video I posted. And there are infinite ways of doing banners. This is just one of many, but I love to keep it simple, love to keep it quick, because we want finished minis. Thank you so much for watching. Hit a subscribe if you feel like it. I'd love that. You might love that too. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.